Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, boys and girls, we are mere hours away from the big night of the Academy Awards, and it's important to cheer for our own. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once more, as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. You can subscribe. Please subscribe to the podcast. Give us the old 5-star rating. Give us the like button on your podcast provider of choice. We're pretty much everywhere over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook. We're on the Twitter. We're on the Instagram. We're on the TikTok, and we're on the Letterboxd for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, you know, if we love to write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. It's Oscar night, boys and girls. It is the Academy Awards. We are all getting ready and getting settled in to figure out what is the best of the year. Or, you know, that's all subjective, of course, but who wins the big trophy, who brings home the big prize? It is a celebration of cinema in general, and I know all of you will be watching if you aren't already. I'm sure there's a pregame show going on somewhere. But in the spirit of that, we've got ourselves a little Oscar special episode as we're highlighting one of the nominees for Best Animated Short, because obviously it comes from the National Film Board of Canada. It is one of our own. We got to root for it. It's called The Flying Sailor, and it's the story of a sailor who is sent hurtling into the sky by the big Halifax Explosion, if you don't remember that. You remember those Heritage minutes we all used to see as a kid. This actually happened. And this story of this sailor being thrown through the air also actually happened. Obviously, the animated short gets a little fantastical with it, but I mean, that's part of the fun. But in advance of tonight, we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the writers and directors of this fantastic short, Amanda Forbis and Wendy Tilby, just to talk about how they made it all and sort of, you know, developing the story and also sort of working inside the NFB system and sort of the excellence that comes out of that and you know, the joys of actually being able to attend the Oscars, because this is not the first time they've been and it probably won't be the last. And you know, also learning when to have that well-timed gin and tonic. But before you fire up the Oscars, if you get a chance, check out The Flying Sailor, which is on the NFB website now. But first, enjoy our talk with Amanda Forbis and Wendy Tilby, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. Happy Oscar night, everybody. All right, well, obviously, first off, just officially, just thank you, you know, so much for the time today, you both, and just congratulations on the film. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is just like, walk me through, I guess, the inspiration for it all. Because, I mean, I knew the story of the Halifax explosion, but I didn't quite know there was literally a flying sailor.
At least you knew the story of the Halifax explosion. That puts you way ahead.
Want me, sir? So, well, this is it's interesting because, yeah, a lot of people in the world have never even heard of the Halifax explosion. And it was, as you know, an absolutely catastrophic explosion that happened in 1917, World War I. And what happened was two ships collided. It was just a fender bender in the Narrows. And one of the ships was absolutely loaded with explosives. And the collision caused sparks and it blew up and decimated the city. But there were many, many stories of people who were there on the ground. And one of them that we discovered when we visited the Maritime Museum in Halifax was that this one sailor named Charles Mayers was on the docks, and he was launched and found himself a few seconds later 2 kilometers away. He was completely naked except for maybe one boot. And we know very little about him other than he was an English sailor. He went back to Liverpool after the war and became a riverboat pilot, but he was basically unharmed. And what captivated us to tell that story was just that we were interested in what was the flight like, what was that experience like for this guy. And we thought it had great potential for animation because we could just basically make it up and nobody could tell us we were wrong. So that's what happened, and it amounts to a near-death experience, which we found intriguing.
No, for sure. No, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating to watch, and I mean, I loved the animation style of it as well, because I mean, obviously it starts off pretty standard, but obviously when the explosion goes, it's you're basically going very free form with it. And I mean, for you both, how important was it to sort of really push boundaries of just sort of the idea of what this experience might be like? Because I mean, again, we think of it in the literal, but I mean, just when we see him sort of go on this sort of metaphysical journey, it's so much more than that.
Well, it was really important. We loved having this envelope of him. He launches and then he lands, and then everything in between. The world was our oyster. We could do whatever we wanted, but of course you need some structure and some notion of what you're doing. And so the idea of the near-death experience, I mean, I would say it almost strikes us as an obvious idea. As he goes higher and higher, he gets closer and closer to death, and then he plummets back to Earth again. And we wanted to capitalize on real near-death experiences, which have this incredible commonality amongst everybody in the world. They have very similar experiences when they come back from these moments when they're just about to bite the dust, where they first everything will start moving slow motion. In accidents particularly, people find themselves with what seems like reams of time to think about their predicament, and they'll see visions of dead relatives and have critical memories of their lives, and then they'll get this kind of wonderful sense of peace, like everything's okay. They're perfectly ready to head off into the great blue yonder. And so that was the structure for his voyage.
Well, and I mean, it's the thing really wrote itself almost, because I mean, there's a real beauty in the fact that he does lose his clothes. I mean, when I watched it the first time at TIFF, I was like, oh, that's a nice imagery. He's being rebirthed back into the world, but no, he actually did lose his clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't being gratuitous at all.
I think some people think we are being gratuitous. They don't understand that actually at those velocities you lose all your clothes.
No, I mean, it's just remarkable that, I mean, A, someone survived that, but I mean, B, to just, again, I mean, I'm always kind of amazed that more people don't know about the Halifax explosion. I mean, I remember that sort of Heritage Minute, and I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, that's where I learned about it. That's where it's stuck in my brain.
Yeah, us too, actually. That the Heritage Minute is what people always remember, and the telegraph operator who stopped the train.
Yeah, it shows me those things worked, because I think that's how most Canadians know. Of course, Haligonians know it inside out, because a lot of them have relatives who suffered through it. And apparently, if you're digging in your garden in Halifax, you most likely will find chunks of shrapnel from that ship.
Wow.
Even now.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Now, I mean, I'm curious, but I mean, I've got to ask, because I mean, obviously you guys have been nominated yet again, but I mean, is it old hat at this stage, or like is getting that call still a bit of a thrill that you get nominated for an Oscar?
No, whatever. It's just another day. Yeah.
We can barely wake up in the mornings, you know.
Seen one, you've seen them all. No, I have to tell you, we were certainly on tenterhooks. Obviously, we knew we were on the short list, which means had been narrowed down to 15 films, of which 5 would be nominated. And we by no means thought we were a shoo-in. We've seen them all, and it's a strong field. So we happened to be in Sundance at the time at the festival, and it was very early morning, which is when they announce, and we were just jumping around and hooting and hollering. So it's really wonderful. It means a lot to us, just in the sense of when you make a film like this, it's so much work, and we spend years on it, and you don't know as the film is released how it will be received, and it's quite a vulnerable feeling. And this is just sort of given us a real boost that yes, the film is appreciated and it's getting lots of exposure, but it also means that we're kind of in a tizzy of preparation and what to wear and
It's exhausting.
press and all that sort of
Unbelievable.
stuff. And the press is certainly, the media verse has ramped up so much since the last time we went through this. So that's
actually the nice thing though is that we can have conversations with people like you who go a little bit in depth, and it's a more relaxed situation. And the last time we did this about a decade ago, it was how does it feel to be going to the Oscars? Thank you very much. Goodbye.
What are you going to wear?
Yeah. What are you going to wear? Yeah. Yeah. So this is wonderful. I'm really appreciating the caliber of conversations we're having.
And Zoom has made it easier too, because we used to have to go to
TV stations,
or just do it on the phone, which is awkward.
Now, I do have to ask you one stupid Oscar question, but I mean, because I've always been kind of curious about this. Where do you end up sitting? Like, I mean, are you on one of the balconies, or are you on the main floor, or?
You're on the main floor. It's
at the back.
It's quite interesting. The new theater, well, the Dolby Theater, it's quite cleverly designed so that even though we're on the main floor, we're not on the real main floor with the celebrities. So you go out to a lobby where you're with other nominees that let's just say nobody really cares about. Second tier nominees.
Visual effects. And then sound design. No, I understand.
Yeah, they go up from there, and the people who they're just lucky to be there. They're at the very top.
They barely have oxygen up there.
Yeah.
But even in each tier has as Amanda said, a lobby, but with its own bar. So if you want to jump out for a gin and tonic during the show, which we did the last time, you're not gonna be having a gin and tonic with George Clooney,
right?
But however, when you go to the nominees lunch, which is where we're going soon, Monday, we're going to the nominees luncheon. That is an event that is strictly just for nominees, and you're all in the same room, and you probably are not going to be put at a table with Brad Pitt or whatever, but but you do have an opportunity to mingle, and we did mingle the last time a little bit, and we did meet George Clooney as a matter of fact. But anyway, that's fun. That's a bit more fun because it's more relaxed. It's not the show. It's not televised. And people just enjoy it.
Well, that's good. But I mean, obviously don't have your gin and tonic when your award's about to come up. Make sure you're in your seat when that happens, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think what happened the last time was that usually the short animation category is quite near the beginning, which is good. You just get it over with. And this time we sat down in our seats, and then we saw the program, and we realized it was near the end of the show. And we thought, okay, we need a drink between now and then.
Now, this is something I'm curious about because, I mean, obviously you've been making films for years and you've been in it, but I mean, the NFB always seems to sort of be at the top tier when it comes to short films and short programming. What is it about producing films in the NFB system that really allows sort of for the cream to rise to the top? Because, I mean, again, like I said, I mean, I think this is the 77th nomination for the NFB or something like that when it comes to the Oscars. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, for one thing, it's the culture that the film board has made so many fantastic films right back from its very beginnings, that you're stepping into a culture that wants you to do well and has provided you a long history of inspiration. So that in itself is incredibly valuable. But it's also the fact that you get to follow your own nose about what it is you want to do and how you want to say it, that they support, as it's called, auteur filmmaking, where it's a single voice really, or in our case, two voices, and they do their best to make sure that you are able to achieve that. And it doesn't matter if it turns a profit, because there are, of course, many, many ideas rolling around out there in the world that will never make a lot of money, that are great ideas. It's just a given, the tying profitability to value is wrong. And so you get these very independent points of view, very offbeat, generally They come from people who have strong ideas about their visual world and how they want to express themselves. And so it's just very, very special. And independent animation elsewhere in the world has come a long way, particularly since computers. You're seeing many people doing very, very interesting work. But for Canada, it's made us this short animation powerhouse. I don't know if you can use the word powerhouse.
It's oxymoronic.
Yeah. With short animation, but still we're known for it. And so we keep doing it, which is wonderful.
But it really boils down to public funding.
Yeah.
And for all the reasons Amanda said, it's because it's not trying to turn a profit, and that it's public money, and therefore there is a bit of more of a luxury of time and resources to experiment and to try things that would be harder in commercial deadlines and that sort of thing. Or we've worked commercially a lot too, so we keenly feel the difference. We know the difference in how we work in both worlds. And so I mean, I think the Canadian taxpayer, not everybody's aware of it, because some people just want to cut things like the film board, but it's a very small budget in the grand scheme of things. And it really, in the international film community, the film board is revered much more than it is in Canada, actually.
That's right. I was really struck. We've been on some panels with some of the other shortlisted films before the nomination, and one of the films that's nominated is My Year of Dicks, and the filmmaker Pamela, I don't know whether is it Ribbon? She said she works for Disney, right? She's a script writer, and so she's worked in the industry for a long time. And she was asked the question, "What's the difference doing your own film as opposed to working for Disney?" And she said, "Well, the first thing is that I don't have people saying no to me all the time," which I think tells you a lot about how things go in the industry. You're knocked down all the time, and so when left to her own devices and given a budget, she's done something that has her up for an Academy Award.
That's wild. But I mean, it's one of those things, and I'm curious on your take on this, because I mean, we all know historically, especially from the general public, short film occasionally gets dismissed, or it's just an artistic endeavor and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, these days, it's not uncommon to see short form content on Netflix. I mean, hell, something in your category that got nominated, it's on Apple. Short form seems to be having more of a place, and I'm kind of curious, how has sort of the evolution of how we're all watching things, especially now with streaming and whatnot, has that opened the doors a little bit to be that short content to be a bit more mainstream?
A little bit. I think we're feeling that because of the form, as you're saying, online screening is more of a thing, and even Netflix services like that are more flexible. I mean, certainly when they stopped showing shorts before features, it was a great loss for shorts.
And that was a long time.
I'm talking about in movie theaters, and the cartoon before the short, or the little NFB doc before the short or before the feature, was such a great thing for shorts. And now people often say to us, well, how do we see them? Why are you doing something so obscure? But we love the form itself. And I do think that it's gaining a bit more respect, the short form. And people at Sundance were saying that there's just much more of an appetite for short filmmaking. I think people who do shorts in live action are almost always aspiring to make features. And that's pretty universally true, I would say. But in animation, it's not true. Amanda and I really don't think we would want to do a feature. It's such a different animal in animation. It would just require big crews, and we like the scale of what we do.
Well, our brains work in short film. It's really like comparing poetry to a novel.
Yeah, this is a very, very different thing. But now that broadcast TV is almost a thing of the past, and you don't have the what do they call the TV hour or the TV half hour, which is 20 minutes. There's the flexibility to program shorts and on cable networks and all that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that it'll continue to grow in that way.
I still wish that we would go back to shorts before features, because I think that's the ideal way to watch them. A, captive audience, my favorite. And B, you're not, sometimes shorts packages can be quite exhausting because you're kind of
sure.
switching tracks every 5 or 10 or 15 minutes.
It's too many bonbons. It's just too rich.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Whereas a short before a feature,
Yeah.
I regard that as a treat. I think, oh, okay. And you're settled in, you're there.
Yeah.
It's a really nice thing. I wish it would come back, but that's a tough sell for theaters.
No, you're right. But I mean, I love that you brought that up because I mean, you're right. With live action short, it does tend to be more of like a proof of concept thing to sort of sell and move on. But I mean, if it's animated or if it's documentary, it's its own little package. And I mean, that really
That's
is a
right.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be said for the concision. We've been watching some of the nominated docs, and these really beautifully crafted, concise
The
ideas.
short ones, you mean?
The short ones.
Yeah.
Sorry. They just say exactly what they need to, and then they stop. And that's just wonderful. And I appreciate the concision and the thought that goes into crafting a brilliant thing of 20 minutes.
Well, sometimes you see feature films, doc or fiction, and they're too long because they
I see them every day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they were not meant to be featured. They're not feature ideas, and yet
people are stuck in that.
They feel that that's the only way they'll get distribution. It's like how they're building houses too big now because developers tell you have to have a huge house.
It's the same thing.
Does anybody really want one?
Now, I mean, just to put
Don't
a bow
get me started.
No, well, but I mean, just to put a bow on this, I mean, from your perspective, do you think that's why the short form matters? Because I mean, it's so easy to lose the crux of a story if you try to put too much padding in it. And I mean, there are so many films and so many filmmakers out there who kind of fall into that trap. I mean, at the end of the day, is that why the short form matters from your perspective?
Well, I think the short form matters because it is a different means of expression, just like poetry is a different means of expression than a feature film,
than a novel.
Than a novel. Yeah, and actually, I mean, it is interesting when you're talking about our shorts being acknowledged more. We've had more people say to us in recent months, that's a totally different thing. They'll say it must be a totally different thing making up a short film than it is making up a feature, and it is, and it has to be regarded that way. And absolutely it matters. I think that some of the most beautiful films ever made are short, particularly animation films that a lot of people have never seen, that are just exquisite and perfectly crafted. So as long as things of beauty matter, absolutely it matters.
No, amen to that. Things of beauty do matter, and definitely like this film. This film is a thing of beauty to me. And I mean, Amanda, Wendy, enjoy the rest of this ride. Enjoy your well-timed G&T on the night of, and I'll be pulling for you from home. But I mean, seriously, congrats on the film, and thank you both for the time today.
Well, thanks, David.
Thank you.
Fun.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Likewise. All right. Bye.
Bye, David.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.